What is up, everybody? Jay here with Y-Aim Gaming, bringing you yet another Walking Dead review and my thoughts on what will be coming up in our season finale. Best news, we'll go ahead and get it right off the bat. Most people may have already known, season finale extended to 90 minutes. Woo! As Ric Flair would say. That's awesome, man. I'm glad that they did that. That means we'll get some more action. We'll get some more adventure. It'll be like Indiana Jones meets Star Wars meets Cube 2. Possibly. So, let's get into what happened in episode 515, titled Try. Well, first off, what we had was the video of Nicholas telling his side of the story. What happened? And we're going to go through this in segmented sections. Not going to just basically go chronologically through the show, but we're going to kind of piece everything together and talk about it. So, start with Nicholas. Alright, so Nicholas tells his side of the story, and of course he tells the side of the story where he makes everybody out to be bad but him, when in all actuality we know from last episode that he is the coward. He is the one that tried to run away. He is the one that got Noah killed. He is the one that did not want to help Tara or try to help Aiden. So, what does he tell them? That, they split, they were going to leave, it was my choice to save them all, blah, 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 blah. What a piece of shit. Okay? That's all I got to say about that guy. I hope his comic book death comes back to get him. Which it was a funny death in the comics. And hopefully the villain that did it is coming next season. God, I hope I can talk about that soon. I don't want to give it away for you guys that don't read the comics, but man, that's going to be good when that guy comes. So then we get to see Glenn talking to Nicholas at the van, and he basically says, I don't want you going back out behind the walls. I don't want you doing this, that, and the other, because you're going to get somebody killed. And Nicholas basically says, what are you trying to do, get me killed? He's like, no, I'm saving your life. Yes. Good job by Glenn. It was a very good speech by him. Before that, we got to see Glenn telling his side of the story also, but he was telling it to Rick. I don't know if he was telling it to Deanna. I'm assuming that he did. The way Deanna works, she usually talks to everybody, so I'm sure that she talked to Eugene also and possibly Glenn. I doubt, obviously, she hasn't talked to Tara because Tara's knocked out. So we got that. Next, we get into figuring out that Nicholas is the one that took the gun that Rick hid at that trash pile. Nicholas found it, put it in a can, and buried it. We see him digging it up. You see him pull it up because it's got the J written on the handle, which is the exact same one that Rick hid. That's good to know. I thought maybe that Enid girl took it. Apparently she did not. So that's going to come into play a little bit later on. I assume that he's probably going to pull that gun on somebody and, try to kill them, and it's not going to work in his favor. Let's just say that. He doesn't seem like the kind of person that could pull a gun on somebody and use it anyway. Now, let's get to the next little section of the show that I enjoyed. Sasha going batshit crazy. Okay? Starts off with her in the bell tower, taking out a zombie. And then Rosita shows up to Michonne's house in her room, and that's where we get the report that Tara is stable at this point in time. That's all we know, is that she is stable. Rosita gives the word to Michonne that Sasha was in the bell tower all night. Abraham's on watch now, but she has not come back inside the gates. She's still out there. So they go on a little hunt to find her. They find some walkers shot in the back of the head, and they know that she's hunting them. So, in fact, that's exactly what Michonne says. She's hunting them. They finally do catch up with Sasha as an enormous amount of zombies are coming at them, and they have to help, fight them off. And you see Michonne have kind of a flashback. And what I first thought when I saw that was that maybe she thinks that Sasha is devolving into what she was. Sasha got real defensive and states that, Michonne is fine, that she got what she wanted out of all this, and that this is how she's coping with it. What I think about that is that Sasha is dealing with her grief in a different way. She doesn't want to be inside the walls just doing a simple job or anything like that. She wants to be out there taking the fight to the walkers instead of having the walkers bring the fight to her. Now you see her almost get killed in the little episode there, and then gets mad when Michonne kind of shoots the walker on top of her. But we'll see where this is going. We didn't get to see much more of them after this. Enid and Carl. Romance a brewing? I don't know. Carl apparently followed her out. The two meet up. They have a little conversation. Walkers come. You can see that Enid is a very resourceful young lady. Throwing the old egg timer out there to get the walkers' attention so they can get away. They both hide in a tree, get that little romantic scene. But she says, oh, that's cute. You're afraid of me too. So I don't know where that's going and how they're going to play them up later on down the line. I guess they're trying to set it up for what's going to happen in the future. A lot of this episode was setting up for what's going to happen in the future. Another thing we got to see, Carol and Sam. Now, we didn't actually get to see what happened between the two, but Carol did say what happened. Carol made that look like tuna casserole for Deanna, in which case Deanna burned the note and left the casserole on the steps. Listening to Nine Inch Nails with her other son and her husband. It's always a good way to start a show, 9 Inch Nails. You can see that Deanna is grieving, but she grieves in a different manner. She grieves more of a straight face, which is actually the way I kind of deal with grief too, is don't show emotion. That I have a big problem with that, is anytime something sad happens. When my mother passed away, I was like a rock, man. All the people around me were breaking down, and I was just like, yeah, man, people die, and that's how I see that she deals with stuff like that in the same manner. I guess it also goes to show that maybe because it is the zombie apocalypse, that she expected somebody from her family would have had to die eventually. So maybe that's that also. But Carol does tell Rick about Sam telling her that his mother installed a deadbolt on the inside of his door to the closet so that he could lock himself in there. Because she's that afraid that Pete will do something to him also. Now, let's go ahead and get into the Rick thing, and we'll take this in order as best I can remember. So Rick gets the word from Carol, and he goes and talks to Deanna before that. He talks to her. She's at the graveside. I guess those two graves. Well, there's 4 graves, but I'm guessing 2 of them were for Aiden and Noah. I'm not sure. We never got to see the front of them to see what it said on them. So there's no telling. There might not have been one for those 2. There might not have been one for Noah. We don't know. But Rick tells her about Pete, in which case she replies with, we had hoped that would go away on its own. So she knew that Pete was hitting Jesse. And when Rick says, we need to do something about it, he says, maybe separate them. And she goes, well, what if that doesn't work? He said, then we'll kill him. You can see Rick kind of devolving back to, let's just kill the fuckers we don't like. Makes sense in a way. I understand what he's going from. And what he tells her is, if we exile him, who's to say he won't come back with people? He knows where we're at. And I get what he's saying right there. That it is possible that he could gather a small army, of other stragglers out there and come back and attack Alexandria. But Deanna will have no part of this. She doesn't want anything to happen like that. She says, we don't kill people. We have evolved past this point. We are still civilization. I get what she's saying also. She's trying to keep this as a part of civilization and not a part of, what the world is around them. But she also needs to see the light at the end of the tunnel and realize that this world isn't the same anymore. And that's kind of what Rick is making the point of, is that these people don't know what it's like. And in fact, he says that with Glenn in that conversation they had on the porch, that these people don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know what's going on. So, Rick confronts Jesse and asks her about Pete. To which Jesse says, just don't get involved. Rick walks away, and he sees Sam running with his little, his red balloon or in his boat, whatever he has there. And he immediately goes back to Jesse's house, goes inside this time, and talks to Jesse, where she asks the question, would you do this for anyone else? His reply was no. So we know that he has feelings for Jesse, and we know that she also has feelings for him. And he asks her to just say yes so that he can take care of this problem. She says yes. About that time, Pete comes around the corner, and an argument ensues, and then a fight ensues. Both men go through the window out into the street and begin fighting. What's going to happen there? They get into a big fight. Everybody comes up. You see Michonne come up and knock Rick out. Now, before he got knocked out, he went on to Crazy Rick. And I like Crazy Rick, but Crazy Rick was really fucking crazy, and he needed to be shut up. He was ranting on and on about how they don't know how to protect themselves. He pulled the gun out, and he was doing that enunciated gun pointing. He needed to be knocked out. I don't know where that's going to go. And we got to see from the little previews that they were having a meeting talking about Rick Grimes. So we'll see where that goes, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute, about what I think is going to happen in the finale. Final thing I want to talk about, Daryl and Aaron out on their scout. You see them take out a walker, into which Daryl sees this fire, a campfire, burning in the distance. Now, I'm still on edge as to whether the campfire was the people that are carving the W's, or if it was that girl and that dismembered body, if those two people had the campfire, or possibly even more of them, and then those guys showed up and killed them. Now, an interesting point in that is the one that was dead on the ground, or not dead on the ground, but you saw his arms and his bottom half, torso and head were gone, just like before we saw at Noah's old Shirewood Estates. That's an interesting little thing right there. So you know it's the same people. The W was carved into the head of the girl tied to the tree, who was also tied naked. That implies that they possibly raped her, did stuff like that. I mean, it's going back to some medieval times kind of stuff right there. They raped and pillaged. They didn't just pillage. So, and they also could figure out from that, or at least what I gathered from that, is that they carved the W into the head of the people before they turn into walkers. It's like they're branding them. Now, whether they're doing that before they are killing them, or before, say they did it when they found this girl and she was part of the group, and then maybe she did something wrong or something like that, and this is her way of, death. This is her death. Or if they tied her to a tree, carved the W in there just to say, hey, we fucking did this. What does the W stand for? I'm going to get into that in a minute, to what I think it stands for. And that's what we see. We see that Daryl knows this is fucked up. You can see it in his eyes and his facial expressions, that we don't need to be dealing with this. These are some bad people. We need to get away. And I hope that Aaron and Daryl don't pursue it too much. They need to find out who they are and what they are, but they do not need to approach them. They do not need to instigate any kind of action with these people. I think they're going to be pretty bad, whether or not they play out as one part of the comics or another, or if they're a separate entity altogether that is not from the comic books. We'll see about that coming up in episode 16, the season finale. So let's get into what I think might happen in our season finale. So we're going to have to get some closure on Rick, on what's going on with Rick. Now, you could see from some of the previews, somebody bandaged him up. I doubt it was Pete. Somebody bandaged him up also. So probably Carol or somebody like that took care of Rick, got him cleaned up. Looked like he was handcuffed laying in that bed. I'm almost certain. You didn't get a body shot of him, but you got the head shot, just the way he was laying face down with his head turned. That's kind of the way somebody would be handcuffed laying on a bed, something like that. So, they're afraid of Rick. And I think almost everybody is afraid of Rick. Say, maybe not Carol and Carl and Glenn and stuff like that, but Michonne, I feel that she is like, I can't think of the word, but not defiant of Rick, but just like, man, come on, we need to talk through these things before you just act out and go crazy like this. So, we also get to see they're having a meeting about Rick and talking about exiling him. We see him walking around in some of these previews. Are they going to exile Rick? That can't happen. I have a feeling that they're going to be ready to exile him. They're going to say that they're going to exile him, and something's going to happen where they need him. Either Pete is going to try to kill him and, try to come up behind him as he's walking away with a knife or something like that. Because we saw somebody unsheathing a knife. I can't remember if it was Rick or if it was Pete in that instance. But I have a feeling that Pete's going to try to retaliate against Rick when he least expect it. And I also have a feeling that he will not get exiled because he's the fucking main character in the show. They're not going to kick him out of the city without something happening, without him and everybody else going with him. But since they've got this place leased for a few years, they're going to be filming in Alexandria for a while, as long as they keep renewing the show. Now, so that's over with. The W, I think it stands for wolves. That seems to be the banter going around on the internet also. Wolves. That's because the scavengers in the comic book, there was a little scene where he was like, little pig, let me in. And like he's the big bad wolf. And I think they've adapted that little saying to a group of people called the wolves. That would explain the, W carved into their heads. And that would explain why they're roaming around a lot. Because obviously they were at Shire Wilt. We know that for fact now. Also, there was a painting, or not a painting, but spray painted on the wall at Shire Wilt. It said, wolves not far. So, we're going with wolves, folks. Wolves! And not the kind with dogs. What are these people? I'm guessing they are scavengers. I'm guessing that they're just moving from place to place, gathering supplies and just killing people as they come across them. Whether or not they're gathering people into it, I don't know. Now, we did get a little snippet at the very end with Sasha and her scope where you saw 2 live people running through her crosshairs. Now, we don't know who these people were. Were they part of the wolves? Were they just maybe some scouts for the wolves? Or were they running from the wolves? We don't know. Maybe we'll find out. There's a reason they made this 90 minutes on the next episode. I'm hoping we get to see some good action and some good drama all tied into one. They did a really good job of doing that this week. I thought this was a very good episode. If I had to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd say it was about an 8.5 out of 10. Wasn't their best episode, but it was very filling, and it did do a lot of build up into the next episode. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any thoughts, any questions, any comments, please leave them down below. And I will see y'all on the next one.